right, welcome. Thanks everybody for coming. I'm Monica Ang, and we have 30 minutes to talk to these wonderful 4 people, so let's get this party started. Everybody, please tell me who you are and what you do super briefly.
Sure, I'm Rodger Cooley with the Chicago Food Policy Action Council. We focus on prioritizing bringing food equity and food opportunity across communities in Chicago and region. We bring together community partners from across the city, county, and state to advocate for policies and then collaborate on making sure they're implemented for the full benefit of communities.
Great, thanks, Rodger.
Hi, I'm Erika Allen, and I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Urban Growers Collective. I'm also a partner in Green Era Sustainability and Green Era Educational NFP, and we work on community food systems, from growing, distribution, creating access points in partnership with community and working collectively. We're also really interested in worker co-ops and food waste energy.
Thanks.
How y'all doing? My name is Jahmal Cole. I'm the founder, CEO of My Block, My Hood, My City. We're a social impact organization in Chicago. Our mission is to take care of people no matter what. If there's a heat wave in Chicago, you'll see us passing out waters and box fans to seniors. If there's a snowstorm in Chicago, we shovel snow for seniors. If a meteor hits Chicago tomorrow, we'd be sweeping up meteor dust. Really, that's what we do. We're like the Red Cross for the neighborhood, so it's My Block, My Hood, My City. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Tallman. I am the Executive Director of the Community Food Navigator. Our mission is to work to expand food sovereignty in Chicago, helping people who produce, grow, distribute food have control over the food system, particularly in Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities.
All right, so could each of you tell me, this is not your first rodeo, you have been working in Chicago for a while. Let's talk progress. What's the biggest and best progress, if any at all, you've seen over the last 10 years in food justice in Chicago? You're laughing. Let's start with you, Erika.
Well, I'm laughing because I think one of the biggest barriers that you actually, through some of your writing and journalism, was getting urban agriculture written into the code of the city of Chicago. We were at a kind of a crossroads where urban ag and, creating spaces where people really have agency and sovereignty to grow food. Like, we're all eaters. If I have land, I should be able to grow food. And it wasn't in our code, and it was becoming really restrictive and punitive and challenging to be able to grow food for everybody, for maybe when there's a pandemic or folks don't have, run out of benefits and need to eat healthy food. We all need this, and it's something that needed to happen to be able to create this, what is now a robust, very, very diverse and multi-pronged approach around food systems and who's engaged and involved. When I first started, I was maybe one of maybe 3 people of color in the room, and now it's really a movement that's led by people of color and frontline communities.
So we've seen progress on diversity in
Big
terms.
time.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I was going to say, the theme of this conference is empowering eaters. And I think of myself, I'm an eater. We're all eaters, and how my own personal habits have changed in the last 10 years. And I think we've seen that in eaters about what they want from the food system and how they're empowering themselves to get it from the food system. As Erika said, things have changed here in Chicago. We have more backyard growers. We have more community gardens. Chicago Public School System has 600 community school gardens. And so eaters are empowering themselves, taking agency over the last 10 years about the food system and feeding their families and feeding their neighbors.
Great. Jahmal, Rodger?
Yeah, I'm still kind of in pain with seeing all these big businesses leave Chicago, especially in Chatham where I live. It's like a trend with the Walmarts and the Targets. We get so happy when they're coming to the community because they're giving out groceries and veggies, right? And then suddenly they feel like the bottom line is more important than community health. And then, people feel abandoned right now. They feel neglected. They feel discarded. There's already 15 currency exchanges in our neighborhoods and no banks. If you ask a kid, what's a job at a bank? They're like, I don't know, right? There's already no dialysis clinics, no mental health services, a lack of after-school programs, and now the grocery store just pulls out without any warning. So I'm kind of upset about that. So I think there does need to be more progress made, but I just think that I'm here as a learner as well. But I'm still
So you're not
super
seeing
upset.
a ton of progress
No,
lately, and we'll
not in my
definitely get
community.
to that. We want to get back to that. Rodger?
Well, yeah, acknowledging Jahmal's reflections on that, that's been a constant issue over the 20 years plus that Erika and I have been doing this collaboration work together in this space, is that there has been a lot of movement in recognizing, and particularly government officials from the White House to the state to the city government, acknowledging the city creating the Food Equity Council in the last couple of years to start together community partners and city officials to be able to collaborate and partner on creating new change. But really recognizing that if the language around food still is around corporate money, and that's in it by their beneficence is how we get resources in these communities, we need to talk much more community and local ownership and control over the means of production, but also extending to retail. There's been a lot of false promises, and once the tax breaks have worn away or been used up, then these companies have pulled out. So I think there's an incredible opportunity for the city, county, and again in partnership with the state and federal resources to make a lot more direct investments, because it's not just community assets, but community wealth building and a real much stronger recognition that food, why we have a lot of these issues is because of economic disparities, historic massive disparities in the south and west sides of Chicago. And the only way to address any of this is to also build community wealth in any of the solutions that we're proposing.
Well, that segues nicely into my next question, which is what would you say are the biggest challenges to creating better food justice in the city?
I mean, you can't really unpack food justice without addressing structural racism, historic, inequities, and how that's netted to this place we are now, where we talk about food injustice, food deserts, food apartheid, but it's really a result of inequity. We look at our food system and a lot of the wealth that was built in this country and globally, and it was through black and brown bodies. And until we reconcile those things, we're just gonna always be putting Band-Aids on. And we ultimately aren't the beneficiaries, unless we have control of those food systems, which is why community food systems, urban, peri-urban, rural, are so key, because we're in control of land, we're in control of what we eat and how we trade, how we support each other with mutual aid, which we saw a lot during the pandemic, but also just in general being able to have the time to heal, to decompress from trauma. It is a lot of trauma. We deal with trauma, and our gardens become safe spaces, the farms become economic engines where our young people and elders can see themselves in their own future while dodging bullets coming to and fro. These are real things that a lot of people don't live those things, right? That's why I embraced food deserts, even though it's technically problematic, because not everybody, definitely Americans, don't realize that not every community has multiple grocery stores, multiple farmers markets, multiple sit-down restaurants. We don't think about it. You just grow up thinking this is everywhere, and I know there's poor people out there, or whatever terminology, but we don't see it. So I think visibility and deep understanding and the place that greed plays in. We often are in these conversations about food justice and never talk about greed. Because greed is a real thing. There has to be an upper line along with the bottom line. What is that level where we continue to extract to the point where our planet is burning? So I think that all of these things converge, they're complex. We can't distill it to a couple one-liners. It is really, really hard work. It requires collectivism, cooperation, and real honesty in a way that I think that we haven't been conditioned in capitalism to lean into.
Major challenges?
I'll piggyback off what Erika said. More individuals of color, more individuals in communities that are food insecure need to be at the table making decisions. Their voices need to be valued and heard and seen, and they're not simply, only consumers to large corporations. And that what we value in the food system needs to change, and those that have and control the resources need to listen to and value those that are most impacted by food insecurity, because those are the ones, those individuals are the ones that are going to have the most creative, innovative solutions, the most lasting solutions, because they are in that environment. They are living the environment every day. So those voices need to be heard and seen.
Yeah, and I would say that if you show kids better, they do better. A lot of kids, they never come downtown. They've never seen Lake Michigan. They never waved for a taxi.
You've recently had your downtown day, right?
Yeah, definitely. We took 1,000 kids downtown to expose them to, thank you. It's a lot of kids can't afford, I mean, think about it. It costs $44 to go to the top of the Willis Tower and, to be on a sky deck. It costs $18 to go to, to ride the Ferris wheel or the Centennial wheel in Pier. It costs $20 to get in most museums. A lot of kids don't got money like that. So they just never come downtown or never leave their neighborhood. We changed that a little bit with Downtown Day, where we gave them $50 to explore downtown and stop at all these places. But I wanted to say, a lot of kids, they're ordering their food through bulletproof glass windows every day, like 10 miles from here. Hey, let me get the Doritos, the spicy nut, and then they get the Doritos and they slide it out to you in a bulletproof glass drawer, like you're an inmate in solitary confinement, right? So, like, when I think about food injustice, I think that imagine if you just got your salad today through a bulletproof glass window. You know what I mean? It does something, it is a lot of trauma, and we need to interrupt that trauma. I know me personally, the first time I ever tasted lasagna was when I broke into a house. Like, I remember, like, I probably was like 9 or 11 or something like that, and I broke in and I saw the lasagna in the refrigerator. I was with my brother, and I took a spoon out and I ate a little piece, and I was like, wow, this is what it tastes like to be rich. I said, this is what it tastes like. I wonder what the people thought when they came home. Like, dang, somebody just broke in my crib to take a piece of lasagna. I know that's funny, but no, I'm serious. We used to break into people's houses just to get apples and grapes and blueberries. Like, that was like exotic stuff to us. Like, we wasn't going for no jewelry or no TVs. It was like, let's go get this food that we've never seen before, right? It's a real thing. There's students in my program that have never had an apple before. You watch them eat one, oh, this is what it tastes like. Come on, man, you ain't never had an apple before? Like, it's a serious thing in Chicago, so exposure is key. We got to take these students outside their comfort zone and expose them to different cultures, different professions, different cuisines, different policies. So I'm really grateful for this conference.
Well, I think some of the bigger challenges still is Catherine from the White House described all the siloing across entities and agencies and not thinking about collective accountability for being able to move forward with this work, that it does because of the massive amount of issues and the years and years and years of trauma, disinvestment in communities, active disinvestment in communities and exploitation spaces, that it's going to take a huge amount of collaboration, which is great to see and hear. The White House is helping to drive that. We've been really excited about partnerships that have taken place at the state level with the governor, the leadership of Lieutenant Governor Stratton, even the Department of Agriculture is beginning to take a lead and really highlighting the fact that it's not only white rural farmers who are doing soybeans and corn, but in Illinois there's a lot of opportunities for Black, Brown, Asian, Hispanic producers to be part of the mix as farm workers can transition to supplying food for our communities and their own communities. And seeing it as an economic development opportunity, then leveraging all the partnerships that are happening at the city level across the different departments and agencies, and as well with the county. We were excited to partner with Representative Garcia when he was a commissioner at Cook County to get the Good Food Purchasing Policy passed, which sets standards for sustainable, fair worker and welfare nutrition guidelines for the food that's served at the hospital, the detention facility, but really thinking about opportunities for reinvesting in the neighborhood and community.
So we have a lot of influential food and policy people out here that you could influence, what they invest in or what they pass. What would you want to tell them if you had and there are many out here, a very powerful policy person in a room, in an elevator, and you wanted to give them a pitch for something they should really be investing in that could really move the needle in Chicago? What would that be?
Yeah, you go first, please.
Well, I mean, investment, right? So investment and thinking about investing in community, investing in the young person who catches a passion for cuisine or farming or engineering or whatever it may be, and removing some of the debt going in. So a lot of us work for not-for-profits. They're actually businesses. The business community sometimes poo-poos not-for-profits, but we actually do run our businesses. And when we start to move into wealth building, there's a need for philanthropy to help make that bridge between something that is essential, like I am not trying to make money from my community who is struggling to get good food. Like the expectation to make that monetizable is kind of insulting and kind of impossible. Is it possible to create avenues for financing and forgivable loans and other things that meet ROIs that really dig at these problems and also create bridges for partnership? We need to be in the rooms, we're often not, or we're window dressing. Our community, you've all heard this a million times, the community knows what it needs, it really does. Having the ability, the access, the bandwidth to go into green energy. I've been working on a project for 15 years. There's many people in this room that I talked to get financing. It was impossible until it became possible. Now we have a blueprint for how to bring in investment in ways that doesn't put an additional burden on recovering communities. And I want to frame it that way, recovering communities. We're recovering from hundreds of years of trauma. We're recovering from colonialism. We're recovering from extractive economic systems that don't benefit anybody. And we're seeing it politically. So removing the silos between density of population, looking at ways to build bridges. Folks on this stage, that's all we really do, is we build bridges, we communicate, we create opportunities for folks to see themselves in their own food reality, in our own environmental built reality. So I just think really strong partnerships where there's a win-win, there's transparency, there's an end to extraction or veneering, I think would be really beneficial.
Yeah, amazing. I agree. I think oppression is real. It's a structural part of our country and its history. It was created intentional, and nowadays it's been cloaked up and trumped up laws and false media, and we don't know how injustice is being sustained, really. But I really do remember things like my mom giving me a food stamp, my brother a food stamp, and my sister a food stamp, and telling us to spend 10 cents each at the corner store and bring her back $2.70 so she could buy some bleach because you couldn't use food stamps for basic toiletries. So I probably would talk to the policymakers about that. I'd also say that I remember eating at homeless shelters growing up and being very embarrassed because my classmates would be volunteering at the shelters and they'd have the clear gloves on giving you the food. And my dad would say, hold your head up high when you get that food. Don't be embarrassed, just go get your food. But I was so ashamed. I was so ashamed of living in a motel and eating at a shelter. But a lot of the Catholic charities and the shelters in Chicago, they got healthier foods than the schools. They really do, So I think just maybe the policymakers getting at the block level so they can see what's happening with their own eyes, and then they're smart enough to come up with some solutions. Yeah,
what you said, Jahmal, about the block level, there is an abundance here in Chicago and in other urban agriculture areas. We need to change what we value as a society when it comes around food. Food is essential for all of us, and so food should be people-driven rather than profit-driven, and investing in local, small-scale agricultural endeavors, whether it's a farm, whether it's a community garden, whether it's teaching children at the school system about nutrition and farming and workforce development programs. There's a role that government, private corporations, and philanthropy can play in investing in small-scale solutions that will have large impact.
Okay. Rodger?
Yeah, concurring, of course, with many of the things, but I think the investments, framing food access not as a privilege or as something that you get, or you're going to get what you get and you don't get upset kind of mindset, but more that it is a human right, and that moving our mindset, even if the U.S. government isn't quite prepared to do that at the UN level, locally we can push for that to be the perspective of how we're going to address this process moving forward. And while we're doing that, again, how are we constantly reinvesting, making community assets available, reinvesting in communities? There's been a lot of documentation that it's a 10-to-1 gap between commercial investments between the north side of Chicago and the south side, that it's a $10 are invested in the white communities and $1 is invested. So that's got to be, just to even get to parity, isn't going to get over the hump of how much disinvestment there's been over the years. So there has to be a very committed, thoughtful approach to how are we going to collectively, because that's not just going to be government dollars, that's bank investments, that's corporate investments, that's philanthropic investments, but really making sure that it's not just how do we get a project here and there that we can have a ribbon cutting and we're done. How is this going to be a long-term approach?
So all of your comments seem to allude to, some big news stories in Chicago, which are the departure of, an Aldi on the west side, the Whole Foods in Englewood, and then recently 3 Walmarts. What would you say? But then people have said, okay, so then these smaller operations have moved in. Is it better to invest in smaller local operations, or to lure back these big chains with maybe subsidies or incentives? Some of them were claiming that they were not turning a profit. Should there be a government subsidy that would say, hey, big chains, come back? Or is it better to invest in smaller local operations?
It's not one or the other, it's both. I think that a lot of the challenges that the community, especially the activist community, had with, let's say, the Whole Foods closing, not to pick on Whole Foods, but to pick on Whole Foods.
They may be a sponsor.
Is that there is a $10 million TIF that was given to a company that didn't need it to open up a store. And then once the TIF expired, the company pulled out. So it's just it can be a loss leader for 10 years. But that becomes an asset in the community that is lost. Whereas the smaller bodega, mom and pop, corner store, that's a local economy, that's circular dollars. We're talking about moving into climate change and thinking about circular cause and effect. My action impacts the environment impacts me. It's the same thing with money. Can we subsidize and provide supports to community-run and operated, especially co-ops, that are assets in the community? I'm not going to get into schools closing, but that was really what that was about. Those were institutions of support, food, shelter, community that people felt and were in control of, had agency. And those grocery stores, those small places where people can come in and people know your name, helps to support and creates safety, fabric of connection between people, and there's a lot of money that's exchanged that needs to stay in our communities.
Anybody else want to chime in on?
Well, I was invited to Bentonville, Arkansas to give a presentation, and I could...
The capital, the Walmart headquarters?
Yeah, yep, so I gave up my presentation, and then after my presentation, I was having dinner, and I was actually sitting down next to Bill Walton and Alice Walton, and I didn't know it because Bill Walton had a hole in his sweater, right? And he was worth $55 billion, right? And then Alice Walton, she was blinged out. But I was explaining to her that, I was saying, hey, the Walmart in Chatham, I always put my cart back in the cart corral because I want to do simple things in my neighborhood to make a difference. And she was like, well, explain. I was like, yeah. Everybody said, what are you doing? It's so cold. Why are you taking the cart all the way back? I'm like, I want to do simple things to build a muscle memory it takes to make a difference in my neighborhood. They looked at me, they were like, what's a cart corral?
Oh my God.
I'm just joking. No, they didn't do that. But the point is, I was trying to explain to them, I was like, man, I was like, how y'all gonna pull out the neighborhood? Just trying to get them to invest in nonprofits. Like every month, what we've been doing since they left is we've been giving out 1,000 meals, right? We partner with Top Box Foods. We want to partner with other people as well. But we give out 1,000 meals on 83rd and Chatham every month, and we feed about 5,000 people. And it costs about 35 bands to do it every month, and we do it because our mission is to take care of people no matter what. But I think if you have we do need partners in federal government. We do need partners in corporation. We do need partners in local government to help out social impact organizations that are doing the work at the block level.
I just concur that I think making the investments in local enterprises owned partnerships, knowing that that's not going to be the 100% solution, but if we don't make that commitment now, we're going to constantly have the same issue because the economic conditions for these global corporate entities are going to be the same over time. And the opportunity is, starting today, tomorrow, to move forward with that. So,
Well, I want to thank you, lovely people, for talking to us today. I wish we could talk more.
thanks.
Give it up for Rodger, Erika, Jahmal, and Lisa.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Erika. You're the best. I love Eric Allen so much. I just want everyone to know. That was a fantastic panel. 3 things stand out for me. Jahmal's motto that we should take care of people no matter what. Round of applause for that, please. Second, access to delicious, affordable, healthy food is a human right, and we should all recognize that. And third, that communities know what they want and need. What they need is investment and capital. They don't need people who look like me to come in and tell them what to do. Invest in communities, everyone, please.